योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत् तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि.
So good morning, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the 5th session of our Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So the first 4 sessions, what we did was, we did a brief introduction, because before getting into the actual scripture, we need to get introduced to the scriptures. So in our first session, we did a very high-level overview of the Indian spiritual traditions. What is Vedic versus what is non-Vedic? Where exactly Yoga Sutra fits into? We know that Yoga Sutra is part of the Vedic spiritual tradition, one of the 6 darshanas of the Vedic tradition. So we saw that. In our second session, we did a very brief introduction to the yoga, because yoga goes much beyond Yoga Sutra. So we started giving a small introduction, a very brief introduction, starting from the Vedic period to the International Day of Yoga, which is very recent. So that we covered. In our third session, especially because of the questions, we added a new session, which is we wanted to present what is the integrated view of the yoga, because that was a confusing topic. So hopefully that clarified, even though the topic was a little bit difficult or a little bit complicated, that will unfold itself in the upcoming sessions. But we wanted to give a brief overview of the whole picture. We talked about the 2 definitions of yoga, how the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the yoga of the Raja Yoga connected with the yoga of the Gita, how all these things fit together. That was the third topic. And last week, what we did was we introduced the Yoga Sutra itself. What is a sutra literature? What are all the major topics covered in the Yoga Sutra? Who is the author of the Yoga Sutra? And we saw a brief introduction to sage Patanjali also. So with this, without further delay, let's get into the actual sutra itself. So now the mode is going to be slightly changing. So far, we were trying to understand something outside of ourselves. Yoga Sutra, we saw that objectively. Yoga, we saw objectively. Indian spiritual tradition, we saw objectively. Something like a history, something happened in the past. We were trying to understand how these things fit together. Now we are getting into the actual sutra. So my request to you is, now what we are doing is we are going to take a journey. So the Yoga Sutra is what we are going to do from now onwards is a map. It's a map to take a journey within ourselves. So the destination is the Kaivalya. Who are you really? But in between, we are going through different stages, different practices. Some practices will be prescribed, but when you practice, where you need to look, you don't need to look into Yoga Sutra, but you need to look into yourself. So we are going to undertake a subjective journey compared to the other scripture. If you take Bhagavad Gita, it covers a varieties of topic. It talks about Karma Yoga, it talks about Upasana Yoga, a lot of topic. Here, the entire topic is focused on meditation. The entire topic is focused on meditation. So this is a deep study of ourselves through the meditative practices. We need to keep that in mind. So with that, we are going to enter into the actual study of the Yoga Sutra. And please pay clear attention. I'll try my best to unfold the sutras as much as possible. And if there is any issue with the clarity, please post in the group or use our Q&A session. We will try to clarify that, because now onwards, clarity is very important. If you are not clear on a topic, if you are stuck on a topic, let's discuss that, clarify that, and move ahead. So please, second point of announcement is the sutras. We saw what is a sutra. It will be in a cryptic form. One sutra may have 3 or 4 words. What we are going to do is we are going to unpack and elaborate each word of the sutra. And then we are going to combine that and see the holistic meaning. So this is going to be a deep study. We will try our best in the class. But I'm going to check out the slides immediately after the class. Please go through the slides. If you want, please listen to the recording one more time. And if you need any assistance, please reach out to me. I'll be glad to support you as much as possible. So these are some of the introduction. So with that, let's get into the chapter 1. Last week we said the Yoga Sutra has 4 chapters: Samadhi Pada, Sadhana Pada, Vibhuti Pada, and Kaivalya Pada. One pada is one chapter, and each chapter has certain number of sutras. So we are going to get started with the first chapter, which is known as Samadhi Pada. Samadhi Pada, the first chapter of the Yoga Sutra is known as Samadhi Pada. What would be the subject matter? You can be interactive. This means we can go as much interactive as possible now onwards. What would be the theme of this Samadhi Pada? The name itself implies that. Samadhi. Yes. The question is, what is Samadhi? Complicated term. I'm sure most of you might have heard the term Samadhi. For you, some of you may think that when a saint passes away, that is what is Samadhi. Some of you think that it is self-realization. Some of you think that it is something else. So this chapter is going to clarify what is Samadhi. So that is the subject matter of this chapter. So let's start with a very high-level definition. What is Samadhi? It means samahitati. Dhi means mind or intellect. We are going to see the difference between all that. Samahita means a mind or an intellect which is well placed. Now, even that word well placed is a little bit confusing. See, when you use the word, it has to convey a definite meaning. If that definite meaning is not clear, it is still ambiguous. A well-functioning computer means what? Think through this. Just take a moment. A well-functioning microphone means what? A well-placed network means what? A well-placed running car means what? Think through that. Let's take one example. A well-placed computer. Let's say that if that computer is affected by a malware, can you say that that computer is functioning well-placed state? No. Right? A car, like a check engine is happening or something is not functioning. That means it is not in a well-placed state. So well-placed mental state means a mind is an internal organ, right? A mind is an internal organ. If it functions exactly as it is designed for, every system in the universe is designed to accomplish a purpose. Those who studied the system analysis and design in your computer science classes, how do they define a system? It's a collection of interrelated components to accomplish a purpose. Correct? A monitor of a computer. It's a collection of interrelated components. There is a display, there is a switch, there is so many controls. So all these things put together for a purpose. What is that purpose? I want to see my display. A TV is a system because it's an collection of interrelated components designed for a purpose. Your phone, again, it is a system. Like that, the human mind is a system. It is a collection of in multiple interrelated component, and it is designed for a purpose. And if that purpose, if the mind functions aligning with that purpose, that mind is a well-placed mental state. Let's say, think about the malware example. If the computer is affected with the malware, yes, it is designed for a purpose, but the malware prevents the computer from operating or attaining that purpose. So that means it is not in a well-placed state. Anything that is not in a well-placed state needs some correction or some fine-tuning. So samadhi means a mind on a high level, right? We are going to see in detail. If you take the literal meaning, it means only a mind that is in a well-placed state. It is not talking nothing about self-realization. It is not talking anything about the complicated spiritual aspects. It only means a mind that is in a well-placed condition. So let's clear that. And we are going to expound this topic in depth in this chapter. So a brief overview of the topics covered in this chapter. The first sutra, that is what we are going to see today. On the average, we will see 2 to 3 sutras every day. That's it. We are going to understand the gist of the sutra. Today, first day, we are going to see most probably only 1 sutra. And if the time permits, we may just introduce the second sutra. But on the average, we may cover 2 to 3 sutras every day. So today, the first sutra, which is the statement of intent. And then sutras 2 to 4, it is going to define what is yoga. The definition of the yoga is we are going to get from sutras 2 to 4. And then 5 to 10, different types of modifications of your mind. Remember the definition of samadhi, always keep that in mind. What is the definition of samadhi? A mind that is in a well-placed state. So if the mind is not well-placed, what are all the modifications? How can I control and monitor and control those modifications so that my mind is always in that well-placed condition? So for that, I need to understand what are all the modifications of the mind. And then from verse 12 to 16, we are going to get how to control that mental modifications. Very important. So you see what is yoga. Yoga is samadhi. Samadhi means keeping your mind in a well-placed state. And then what exactly is the potential changes to my well-placed mental state that is caused by the modifications of the mind? How many modifications of the mind are there? And how to make sure that modifications are monitored and controlled? And then we will see what are all the different stages of this well-placed mental condition. It's not that it's not binary. In fact, there are 7 different types of samadhis. We are going to see one by one, 7 different types of samadhis. And then what are all the efforts and commitments I need to put to get into that state of samadhi? Then there is an easy path. Like sometimes you put some catalyst in your practice. Surrender to God. What does that mean? What is the God we are talking here? That's also important. Are you putting a sectarian view? Absolutely not. So that surrender to God. Then what are all the obstacles you can encounter in your meditative practice? And what are all the solutions for that? That is the next topic. And then finally, how to stabilize and clear your mind. And finally, it talks about the benefits. Just look at the content. The entire content is focused on what? My mind. The entire content of the first chapter is focusing on my mind. And the entire content is based upon the meditative practices. Right? In Bhagavad Gita, you see Karma Yoga and everything is there. But the first chapter of the Yoga Sutra, the entire content is focused upon the meditative practices. So this is the gist of this. 51 sutras are there. We are going to see one by one. Every day we will cover 2 to 3 sutras. We will unpack and try to elaborate every sutras. And then finally, we will try to see the overall meaning. We will try to see the implications of the mind. Any questions are welcome. We will, now with that, we are going to take up that journey. Any questions or comments? If not, let's start with the first sutra.
Just a nitpick in the chart, number 11 was missing. 5 to 11, modifications of the mind, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Good catch. I'll update that before I send it out. It's a typo. Okay, so with that, let's go to the first verse. First sutra. So let's listen to the chanting and then we will go from there.
Atha yogānuśāsanam.
You all can hear the audio, right? Perfect.
Yes.
This is not meant to be chanted, but we created a good audio version so that we can listen smoothly. I'll share the whole recording. So it means Atha yoga anuśāsanam. This has 3 words. Atha yoga anuśāsanam. These are the 3 words. Now we need to unpack. I'm just unpacking it. Atha yoga anuśāsanam. These 3 words. So each word we need to see, try to see the deeper meaning, and then we need to connect these 3 words together to see the entire holistic view. So that's the approach we need to take. So this is a deep study, so we need to take that. So Atha literally means now. Now. Atha. Yoga means regarding yoga. That is the object. Anuśāsanam means re-instruction. Shasanam means instruction. Anuśāsanam means re-instruction. So a general high-level meaning is that yoga darshana is reintroduced in a very systematic way for committed students. This is the statement of intent. So it is a practice in our scriptural literature to start the first verse with the intent. The intent will clearly tells me what is the subject matter I'm going to cover. The intent will tell me how did I created this content. The intent will tell me what is the commitment I require. Usually this is how the scriptural literature works. Being a sutra, the word Atha is used. In almost all the sutra literature, it starts with the word Atha. We are going to see each one of these words in detail. Yogaha meaning about yoga. Anuśāsanam means it is re-instruction. So in this slide, 3 things. Atha means now. Anuśāsanam means re-instruction. Yogaha means about yoga. So now let's unpack each word and try to understand the deeper meaning. So let's start with Atha. See, in our Vedic tradition, it's a practice that before we undertake any big effort, you develop a prayerful attitude by surrendering to God. So all the sutra literature, the 3 sutra literature I want to quote is Brahma Sutra, which the subject matter of the Brahma Sutra is Vedanta, Yoga Sutra, where the subject matter is yoga, and the Bhakti Sutra, which is the Bhakti, means the subject matter is Bhakti. One is by sage Badarayana, the other is by Patanjali, and the third is by sage Narada. All these literature starts with Atha. Atha yogānuśāsanam, that is Yoga Sutra. Brahma Sutra means Athato Brahma Jijñāsu, again Atha. So, Bhakti Sutra, Athato Bhaktim Vakyasyamaha. See, what is common in all these sutras? First verse. Atha. So, the implied meaning is, if you literally look all our scriptures, the two words typically used to start any major endeavor is one is Om, the other one is Atha. So the Atha in our Vedic tradition is considered as an auspicious means nothing astrology. It's a prayerful beginning. That's all it means. So Atha means Athetyoyam Mangalartha. This is what is the commentary, traditional commentary tells. Athetyoyam Mangalartha. Mangalartha means it is a prayerful beginning. So I am surrendering myself in front of God, because why the surrender is there? Please pay attention. I'm going to make an effort. I'm going to make an effort expecting something. What do I expect? I want to learn Yoga Sutra, and through the Yoga Sutra, I want to know myself. That is my goal. With that intent, I am putting some effort. What is the problem here? Every karmas or every effort I do, sometimes I get the result as I expect. Sometimes I may get much more than I expect. Let's say that I invest some money, expecting that I may get around 8% of return. Sometimes I get exactly 8%. Sometimes I get 35%. Sometimes I get 5%, and sometimes lost the whole capital. I may do, there are certain things I can do. I can do a very good research of the whole portfolio. I can do a very good research of the whole market condition. I can involve the fund managers. I can, with that best effort, I can do that investment. But once I do the investment, there are certain variables, hidden variables, which is not in my hand. So between me and my result, apart from my effort, there is an X factor. And we are surrendering to God or a higher power, requesting for His grace on that hidden variable where I do not have control. This is the whole idea of prayerful beginning in our tradition. I say that, yeah, I'm going to put all my effort, but I know that the results of the karma always dependent upon something outside of me, and I want some grace for that. That's what is the prayerful beginning. And when I do this with that prayerful beginning, it creates certain benefit. Typically, when I do the karma or prayer or even meditation, here, what would be the karma? I'm going to take a meditative journey. So please, in the context of Yoga Sutra, everything is meditation. So I want to undertake a meditation. I don't want to be disturbed with the past worries and future anxieties. Typically, when you sit in the meditation, that is the time all these things pop up. Tomorrow I have a work call. So I'm taking a permission from my mind. During that time frame, I don't want to get disturbed at all. Second thing is, when I put some sankalpa or commitment with a prayer, it helps me to stay focused in that practice time. So focus. Third is purification. Prayer is the best purifier. We will see that a little bit later. Some unwanted doubts we wanted to remove. That also the prayer will help. And with this prayer, it will help me to put my best into the practice. When can I put my best into the practice? Please don't believe me blindly, because this prayer is a big topic which can be confusing to all. See, suppose I want the best result. It is definitely, we said some hidden variables are there, but some non-variables are also there. Let's say that if I don't put money in the stock, or if I don't do the result, whatever is that hidden factor, I'll be failing. So for me to succeed, I need to control what I can control, and I need to pray for the grace where I don't have control. How can I do the best in what I need to do? I should be freed from worries and anxieties. If I'm worried, I cannot put the best in the present. And if means of course the stress, right? So if the stress is too much, you cannot work. If the stress should be right level. So the prayer gives me some, it helps me to focus on the present. It gives me a little bit of comfort so that I can put my best. And finally, the prayer is going to help you to connect with your own true self. So the word Atha is used as a prayerful beginning, as a Mangala means Artha, and it is for me to surrender myself to that higher intelligence of the universe, so that my practice in yoga is more meaningful and more successful and more focused. So this is why the word Atha is used. Now the problem is sutra, right? Alpaksharam Sannigdham. So more meaning. So let's see what other meanings are there. So the commentator Vyasa gives more meaning to the word Atha. It is overloaded, right? One word is overloaded with multiple meanings, all meanings aligning with the purpose of yoga. Second thing is, the subject matter under the discussion is always introduced through the word Atha. So here, Atha Yoga. So what is the subject matter of this Yoga Sutra? Yoga. So it's an introduction to the subject matter. The body of knowledge revealed by the scripture is introduced through the word Atha. Also the word Adhikarartha, the next meaning of the word Atha. Adhikarartha means it needs certain commitment, certain readiness. You want to say that I'm studying Yoga Sutra, I don't have zero commitment. I'm just going to listen this 1 hour. It won't help. I need to put some effort, some to study this, practice this. So the word Atha tells me, please have that commitment. So I can tell you one thing, if you put some commitment in the study of Yoga Sutra, you may not reach to the Samadhi, highest Samadhi level, but definitely you will see some improvement in your life. That is guaranteed. So please put that effort. So the word Atha indicates that also. And finally, the auspicious beginning. We already talked about that, Mangalartha. So it is very common in our scriptural literature to introduce the word through Om or Atha, and indicating that how this particular body of knowledge is different from the other body of knowledge. So let's take one example. Athato Brahma Jijnasu, Atha yogānuśāsanam. One is for Brahma Sutra, the other one is for Yoga Sutra. So the Brahma Sutra said, Athato Brahma Jijnasa. I am going to explore the nature of the Brahman, the absolute reality. Here, Athato Atha yogānuśāsanam. So the subject matter will be very clear in the first sutra. Athato bhaktim vakyasyamaha. I am going to expound or explore the literature of bhakti. This is what the different meaning. So this is the word meaning of Atha. So you got the approach now, right? So Atha yoga anuśāsanam. So in the last 10 minutes, we explored, unpacked and explored one word in the sutra, Atha. So summarizing, Atha means it is the standard practice in our scriptural literature to start with Atha. The word Atha implies a prayerful beginning, and it implies an auspicious beginning. It tells me to be committed to the study of yoga. And with the word Atha, usually I introduce the subject matter, and this is what it is. Clear? Any questions? Otherwise, let's go to the second word, anuśāsanam. So let's further break it down. Anuśāsanam is a compound word in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a language, you can combine words. So when you combine two words, what happens? With the Sandhi rules, it becomes one word. So the word anuśāsanam is derived from two words, anu plus shasanam. So let's try to understand what is anuśāsanam. Shasanam means instruction. That's what it means. So the shasanam, the word comes from the root shas. Shas. Just like the yoga came from the word yuj, right? Shasanam comes from the word shas. The word shas means to instruct. So when you use a root with a pratyaya, you get a meaning. So the word shas is used with a pratyaya, a modifier called tra. The word tra means protect. I'm sorry. This is shasanam. Shasanam means the tra is protect. So shastram is a word created from the root shas. So shastram means that which protects you through instruction. That's all it means. So the scriptures in our literature is known as shastram. It means that which protects you through in the form of instruction. Shasanam is a noun. It means it's an instruction. It's a noun. Again, it is created from the root shas. And when you add the prefix anu to the word shasanam, it modifies that word. I'll give you one more example, one simple example. Anu means that follows the original. That's all it means. If you say the word pati in Sanskrit, pati is a popular word. It means shines. And if you say anupati, what? It shines after. So if you look at in Sanskrit literature, whenever they describe the sun, they say pati. Tomeva bhanti anupati sarvam, right? Have you heard of that prayer? But when you use moon, what do? Anupati. So reflects after. It's not the original reflection, but it reflects after the reflection of, means the light of sun. So the word anu, it tells me that this is not the original instruction of yoga, but it is an instruction using the original instruction. So Patanjali is saying that I am not the author of this yoga. The yoga was time immemorial. It was there always. What am I do? What is my role? Patanjali tells. I am reintroducing this topic. I am reintroducing this yoga based on the original instruction of the Vedas. I am not the creator of the yoga. I am only presenting this yoga for what? In a systematic way. Look at the difference between the new yoga people and Patanjali. So in modern world, they say that I invented this raga or I invented this yoga. The greatest master of yoga here is telling what? I'm only reintroducing it. Very accidentally, this is very accidental. We just started the Bhagavad Gita fourth chapter on last Tuesday. Remember what was the first verse? Aham means imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam. Vivaswan manave praha manurichwakave abravit. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu. Sakale yoga manasa yogo nashta parandava. Krishna tells, this is not my intellect. This was there when the whole universe got manifested. I'm only reteaching you that. This is nothing new. What is Patanjali saying? Exactly the same thing. So Anuśāsanam means it is a shasanam which means based upon the original instruction. Very important. So that's why in the Yoga Bhashya of Patanjali, which is written by Maharshi Vyasa, he tells Yoga Shastram, Shastram Adhikritam Vedidavyam. I'm just giving the Sanskrit commentary not to confuse you, but to give credibility to what I'm saying. Shastram athikritam vedidavya. This is what? The yoga needs to be studied in line with the Vedic teaching. So if somebody tells that I don't believe in Vedas, I only believe in yoga, that is ridiculous. Because neither they don't understand yoga or Vedas. So Shastram athikritam vedidavyam. The word anuśāsanam indicating that. And I quoted Maharshi Vyasa, who is the most authentic commentary of Yoga Sutra. Shastram athikritam vedidavyam. So now, out of 3 words, we saw 2. We saw Atha, we saw Anushasanam. So now we are undertaking the study. We are undertaking the study with a prayerful attitude. I'm undertaking the study with a like a surrender attitude. And I am teaching you only the original teaching which was there. I'm only means using that instruction. Now, what exactly is I'm going to teach you? Patanjali is saying yoga. So that is the 3rd word. What is, we saw already, the word yoga comes from the root yuj. It can mean 2 things. One is yuj, yojani, the integration of myself with the higher self. But in this chapter, is that what I meant? No, the second definition. Yogaha samadhi. Yogaha nirodhaha. Yuj melane or yojane, that is meaning number 1, but there is another meaning, yuj samadhi. So Patanjali clarifies, what is the yoga I am talking? Yogaha samadhi. So in the commentary of the Yoga Sutra by Maharshi Vyasa, he tells, what is this yoga I am teaching in the chapter 1? It is samadhi. Samadhi means it is a well-placed, balanced mental state. Yogaha samadhi. Now, this is very superficial. When I say yoga is samadhi, you may listen and go back. But that doesn't connect us to what is that samadhi. So let's spend some time. So the first 2 weeks, we need to take some time and understand some of these terms very clearly. So let's say that, imagine you are here, you are sitting and trying to meditate something. If the mind is not in a well-placed condition, can you sit and meditate? Think through that. I'm very much anxious about something happening tomorrow. I'm sitting here and meditating. No. Second thing is what? Let's say that I had a big argument with somebody. I'm sitting and closing my eyes and sitting to meditate. No. So think through this for a second. I want my mind to be in a particular state. That is what the intended purpose of meditation. But I don't have any control. So the practices of the first few practices is to gain control over this mental activities, because without that you cannot do meditation. So samadhi is a process. Samadhi means it's a state. So when I undertake certain practices, my mind will be in a particular well-placed mental state, and that mental state, I will have control over my mental activity. So if I am in a state of samadhi, let's say that I'm sitting and closing my eyes and meditating on my breathing, my thoughts will be always in that breathing. It will not go away. If that go away, it is not samadhi. It is still in the meditation stage. So there is a difference between the conventional meditation dhyanam and samadhi. Samadhi means it is the meditative absorption. If I'm meditating on the image of Lord Shiva, as long as I want, my mind will have no other thoughts other than Lord Shiva. So it is a degree of concentration. Uninterrupted degree of concentration is the beginning stages of samadhi. So all of us, we do the meditation, but we are not yet in that samadhi stage. We are in that meditation stage. Meditation stage means what? I am meditating upon Lord Shiva's image. Occasionally I get Lord Shiva's image, but without me knowing what is going to happen. My mind will wander away. So that is not at samadhi. So samadhi means my thoughts are entirely on the object of, absorbed in the object of meditation. That is a very simple way of understanding that. Let's go to in detail. But before that, the word yoga in the first sutra refers to the state of mind called samadhi. It is not referring kaivalya. It is not referring any complicated thing. So samadhi here means it is a well-placed mental state. So let's try to understand. So when the mind is directed towards an object, let's take this simple example. You are sitting and meditating upon a sound. So your mind is directed towards the sound of an object, means of a bell, let's say, or a mantra. The mind can potentially be in one of the 5 different states. That's what we are going to say. So this is again Vyasa's commentary of Yoga Sutra. So Vyasa tells, when you are in the meditation seat, trying to meditate upon an object, let's say that it is the image of Lord Shiva. So you're closing your eyes and meditating, trying to focus the image of Lord Shiva in your mind. The mind can go in 5 different states and each have its own problem. So let's try to understand what are all those states. The first state is known as chitta. Chitta. The English translation, closest English translation is destructive. Destructive state of mind. Destructive state means, a simple example. You had a very heavy argument with your spouse. You're so upset. You don't know what you are doing. Means you can just think through that state. You're so upset. You don't worry about any consequence. You're saying whatever you want to say in the mind. Imagine that mental state. It is a destructive mental state. In such state, you cannot think properly. You can see that the mind has a lot of activities. It is extremely troubled. It is moving from one place to the other. It don't have access to even your own wisdom. Some people will say something at the stage for which they will regret. Even I have done right. It means when you are in that state, you don't know what you are talking. You have no control of what you are thinking. Extremely agitated, hyperactive, extremely stressed, almost emotionally hijacked. That state, Patanjali tells, or Vyasa tells to me, in fact, don't even attempt meditation. Fair? If you are in that mind and if you go and sit meditation, what is going to happen? Nothing will happen. You will get only frustration. And the sukshma sadhanas means the finer sadhanas are not even applicable at this stage. No way. You have to go back and do some physical activity to relax yourself. Without that, you cannot get into samadhi. Impossible. So that's why it's a non-yogic state. Second state is known as mudha. Sleepy, dull, very much depressed. So the difference between chitta and mudha is, chitta is hyperactive. Mudha means inactive. I feel extremely sleepy. What happens? If I go meditation, that is the time you go and sit on the, means using around the wall. Why? The meditation instruction will be a sleep aid. That's all. Nothing will happen. Mudha is a state you cannot go deep into meditation. Again, it's a dull, inactive, sometimes deluded. It's non-thinking, because in that sleepy mode, can you think? Even the greatest scientist cannot think properly at that point of time. So you cannot do the meditation. Here in Yoga Sutra, we are talking all this with respect to meditation. So chitta state, which is a hyperactive state, is not good for meditation. Mudha state is not good for meditation. Vikshipta, that is the state most of us are in. So I sit for meditation. When we get started, right, when you attend Gina's class or Avanit's class, etc., they do the meditation. You go there with good intention. I feel that I'm good. You start with the meditation, start with Om. My mind is focused on the breathing. But without me knowing, mind goes somewhere. Distraction. Distraction. Distraction means occasionally it gets focused, but without me knowing, it goes back. That is okay. This is not, but this is the state most of us are in right now. So this is where the meditation is going to help you. You can continue to practice meditation, because the meditation will help you to lengthen that period. But it is the chitta and mudha, you cannot do finer sadhanas. Vikshipta, definitely you can. This is the practice state. You can practice, and with your practice, you can improve. And once you practice for a sufficient period of time, you get the mind into a stage called Eka Agra. Agra means tip. Eka means one. All the thought process will be towards one thing. That is concentrated state or focused state. This is yogic state, and this is the state of samadhi, first stages of samadhi. So focused state, I'm sure all of you might have done, right? When you watch a movie, you get that focus. When you play cards, you get that, means focus. This is not yogic, but with your will, if you can focus on a subject and get absorbed in that, that is called ekagra. And this is a yogic state. And then finally, nirodha. Nirodha means, but the problem is when focused state is what? If I don't have that object of meditation, my thoughts are always wandering here and there. I'm completely focused when I'm watching a movie. But after the movie, when I'm taking a book to study, the mind is not in my hand. But after a sufficient period of time, your mind will be completely in your hand, and you will determine what thoughts comes to your mind, what thoughts needs to come and go. That is the stage called nirodha. So this is the advanced stage. That is also yogic. So once again, the word yoga used in the first sutra refers to samadhi. And samadhi is a well-placed mental state. And I explained the well-placed mental state as a state where the mind is functioning exactly as it is designed to function. The mind is designed as a tool to help me to navigate in the world and solve the problem. So I should have control over my mind. If the mind starts control over me, that's a problem. So how do I gain control over my mind? Through the meditative practices. That is what is Yoga Sutra prescribes. And what Yoga Sutra tells is, when you try to focus your attention to a particular object, the mind can function in 3 different stages. One is chitta, mudha. These 2 states are not good for meditative practices. Avoid it and do some other sadhanas, some bahiranga sadhanas. We will means Bhagavad Gita gives you all sort of practices, what you need to do at that point of time. Yoga Sutra is not even going to talk about that. Yoga Sutra tells, when you are in the vikshipta mood, come back here. When you are in the vikshipta mood, you do the meditative practices. Eventually, you may go to ekagra, and finally, you will reach this nirodha state. We covered a lot of subject matter. Yes, there is a question.
Yeah, the question is about vikshipta. the primary tuning of the mind is to project. So this stage is also the projection, which is very common function.
Yeah, it means the projection is there, but occasionally, the difference is occasionally I get focused on the object of meditation. In between, the mind will go back. Vikshipta. Vikshipta means Visheshena Chipta. Chipta means destructive, meaning I'm going back. But Vikshipta means it's a special case. What is that special case? Occasionally I get focused. So this is the common state. It is not that bad. If I take an assessment, 99% of us are in that Vikshipta state. So this is what Maharishi Vyasa tells. Yes.
What about when you, in the Western culture, for instance, when you study science or any other subject, you have to concentrate, you have to focus. Would that be like a small ekagra? Or?
It is ekagra because, but the means scientists, when they study, they get some focus. That is the beginning stages of means the samadhi. It cannot be called as fully samadhi, but it definitely it is ekagra for sure. Because when you have one, because scientists get absorbed in what they do, like Edison, he means I read his biography and there are days he forget even he took the lunch. So that type of focus he has. And any discovery or anything great won't achieve without that focus. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells in the 2nd chapter, verse 43 or 42, he tells, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana bahushakha hyanandascha buddhayo avyavasayika. Without this focused mind, nothing can be accomplished. When you are focused, you can accomplish something, whatever is your goal, whether it is secular or sacred. But bahushakha hyanandascha buddhayo avyavasayika. If the mind is distracted, you cannot accomplish anything. So this is a skill. Forget about the spiritual practice. Anything you want to accomplish in your life, you want to accomplish this ekagra. And that is why these meditative practices are so popular even in the corporate world. They don't care about the Asampra Samadhi or the spiritual realization. They want their associates to focus so that their bottom line is up. So this ekagra is very important.
And it's also related to any creative process.
Absolutely. It is related to any, and this absorption is pretty much important in any creative process.
Yeah.
Rajaji, is it correct to think, like I'm trying to understand the difference between ekagra and nirodha. Is it right to think that ekagra, you need effort, and nirodha is effortless ekagrata?
Yes. But nirodha also you need some practices. So I'm going to cover that topic. So just hold on for that topic because that's exactly what we are going to see in this whole chapter. Okay, how to move from ekagra to nirodha. What is the difference? What you are seeing? We are going to elaborate that topic in detail. So please hold those questions. Means we can come back at 12 o'clock. But let me just cover this first verse and then we will open up for Q&A. So just give me 2 more minutes.
Thank you, Rajesh.
So what is yoga? So yoga is very simple. It is a well-placed mental state. So this means yoga here means samadhi. So samadhi is not a disturbed mental state. Samadhi is not a destructive mental state. It is not a deluded state. It is only 2 states. One is either you are completely focused on an object, or another thing is you have even evolved and mastered your thoughts that your mind is completely in your hand. That is what the yoga here we are talking in this chapter. So I see a lot of people misinterpreting this chapter, saying that yoga is union. No, yoga is samadhi. That is what the definition of the first chapter. So let's go a little bit further. So what is this samadhi? So when your mind, we are going to talk about this a little bit more in the second sutra, but at least on a high level. When the chitta or the mind is concentrated or fixed on one type of an object. The example you said, right? Let's say that the example of Lord Shiva's image. I am able to focus Lord Shiva's image whatever time I want. So I go to the meditation, I close my eyes, and I'm completely absorbed on the image of Lord Shiva for a sufficient period of time. Only when I want, the image will go from my mind. That is the stages of samadhi. Whereas in the case of meditation, dhyana, what happens? Occasionally, the mind will go back from the image of Lord Shiva. So at that point of time, what I need to do? I need to bring the mind back to the image of Lord Shiva. So that is not samadhi. It is the beginnings, means it is a distracted state. Of course, you get focused, but you need to bring the mind back often, again and again. I'm just calling out this because a lot of people complain that I lose my focus in the meditation. Isn't it natural? If you don't focus, you lose your focus on the meditation. Are you in that state of meditation? You're already surpassed that meditation and went into the next stage. So if you're meditating, the mind will wander. So don't get disheartened in that process. So that's point number one. Point number two is the whole samadhi. We talk the whole samadhi into two buckets on a high level. One is called samprajnata. The other one is called asamprajnata. Samprajnata means the samprajnata itself is divided into four. We don't have to complicate that, but the whole idea of samprajnata samadhi is you need an aid. You need an aid to focus. It could be a physical form, it could be a subtle form, or even it could be a subtler form. But without that tool, I cannot get the absorption. You got the difference. I need an image of Lord Shiva, or I need a mantra, or I need to focus on my breathing. Without that, I won't get that absorption. The moment I get out of that object of meditation, my mind gets distracted. This type of samadhi is known as samprajnata samadhi. Again, I'm going to explain this in detail in the upcoming session. We're going to drill this samprajnata samadhi into four different types. Savitarka, Savichara, Sananda, Sasmita, and tell you the difference. And whatever meditation technique we study in the class will only come into that first level only, just for your knowledge. So the advanced meditation techniques we are going to see here, right? So this is what is from the scriptures. So 90% of the meditation technique we see in the modern world is only Savitarka. That's it. So that's the first stage of concentration. So you will see you're moving from Savitarka to Savichara to Sananda to Sasmita. That is the Samprajnata Samadhi. And once the Samprajnata Samadhi is gone, you went to the ultimate state of Samadhi, which is what? The mind is completely in control. You don't need an external tool for me to focus or to keep my mental state in whatever I want. And even you can make your mind completely free from all the thoughts. There won't be even any other thought in your mind. Means just like sleep. Sleep, you're unconscious. But the ultimate stage of the samadhi, which is known as asamprajnata samadhi, when you are meditating upon the image of Lord Shiva, the Lord Shiva is the object of my meditation. Without that image, I cannot focus. But I can stay in a state, suspending all my thoughts in the mind. That state is known as asamprajnata samadhi. So imagine, right? You are looking at a screen, which is your mind. Close your eyes, right? Whatever feeling means in that screen of your mind, you get different thoughts and feelings. And that is exactly what you are seeing in the meditation. So if I'm meditating upon Lord Shiva, imagine it as a screen of your mind. The Lord Shiva's image is projected there. No other feed come there. And that is what is samprajnata samadhi. Asamprajnata samadhi means you don't need a feed. Even that image of Lord Shiva is not required. You can see the blank screen. That stage is known as asamprajnata samadhi. And when you get into that stage, who is the real seer of what is happening in my mind? Think through that. It is not complicated. The seer is the consciousness, right? It is the consciousness that is aware of all the thoughts that is happening in my mind. So if I am aware of Lord Shiva's image, the Lord Shiva's image, it's a mental activity that is happening in my mind, which is aware, I'm aware of that through my consciousness. And now let's say that in the screen of my mind, there is nothing else. At that point of time, what happens? The consciousness in me is not conscious of anything else other than itself. So this is the approach of Raja Yoga, if you think. So the approach of Raja Yoga is you are suspending all your thoughts through deep meditative practice, and finally you are seeing the consciousness is aware of itself. Otherwise, what happens? The consciousness is always aware of a thought. So you're gradually reducing the amount of thought, and finally you are eliminating all the thoughts for a short period of time. That is good enough. And the consciousness becomes aware of its true nature. This stage is known as Asampra Samadhi. A simple example used by Shankaracharya in his Vivarana. So he tells, imagine a crystal. There is an orange cloth in front of that crystal. You are looking at that crystal from the other side. What would be the color of that crystal? Appearing color. Orange. So you want to understand the real nature of the crystal. What do you need to do? For a small period of time, you want to take that cloth away. So when you take that cloth away, what you see is the real nature of that crystal. And thereafterwards, if you see the crystal as orange, you know that that orangeness is not the inherent property of the crystal. The orangeness is attributed to the crystal from that external cloth. So when you suspend your thoughts, all the thoughts in such a way, so that the consciousness realizes itself as the true observer. And thereafterwards, whenever you see a thought, the consciousness knows that, okay, it is not me. It's a thought comes to my mind. So the aim of the Samadhi is to make you really understand who you are and who you are not. Typically, I always, if I'm sad, I feel that I am sad and I'm acting on that. But once it is done, again, that sad thought may come to your mind, but I can always distance myself. I can see that it's a thought coming to my mind. This is the Asampra Samadhi. So initially you start with Samprajnana Samadhi, where I can focus, my mind get absorbed only when with an external tool. And from there, I move to different stages of concentration or meditative absorption. And finally, I reach a stage where I can suspend all my thoughts and have a face-to-face meeting with my own true self. And then I understand the crystal as a white crystal. I'm good. Thereafterwards, I got that self-realization. So at the time of Samprajnana Samadhi, I am not in the state of Kaivalya. But when I reach the stage of Asamprajnana Samadhi, the fourth chapter tells me, now you see who you are. That knowledge is going to enable me that self-realization. This is just a gist. So the first chapter of the Yoga Sutra talks about the yoga as Samadhi. So this is the stages. So Chitta, Mudha state, nothing is going to happen. Vikshipta means distracted. When it starts with the Ekagra focused, you start experiencing the Samadhi. What type of Samadhi you experience at that point of time? The Samadhi you experience at that point of time is the Samprajnana Samadhi. One, the Samprajnana Samadhi, your experience means going from one level to the other level to the other level. Finally, you don't need an external tool to focus. And as a result, what is going to happen? You get into that Asamprajnana Samadhi, and you will be able to stop all activity. At that point of time, if you follow the scriptural instruction, you can see who you are. And when you see who you are, that state, you understood yourself properly. And that state in yoga is known as Kaivalyam. The literal meaning of the Kaivalyam, it's known as Kaivalya Samadhi also. The self-realization is only at this point of time. So when you are in initial stages of Samadhi, it is not Kaivalyam. When you reach Kaivalyam, it means Kevalasya Bhava. Literally, it means what? Only I exist. Why? I suspended all the other thoughts. I see myself. That's the literal meaning of Kaivalya. So kevalasya bhava, I only exist. And finally, this stage, you get the realization. So this chapter of Samadhi Pada, whenever we talk about yoga, it means Samadhi. Samadhi means samprajnada, asamprajnada. So the scope of our discussion of the first chapter is these two buckets, samprajnada samadhi, asamprajnada samadhi. That's it. So the summary is, let's begin the study of yoga with a prayerful attitude. We need to commit to the study of yoga by putting all our effort. This teaching is anuśāsanam, not shasanam. It is eternal, and it was introduced by the Lord himself. Patanjali is not the creator of yoga. He only compiled yoga. And then the yoga is introduced in the first chapter is Samadhi. So that's what we see in the first verse. So the first verse was Atha yoga anuśāsanam. With a prayerful attitude, let's study the yoga, which is a re-instruction. I'm teaching this yoga, which is the process to get into the Samadhi, to the committed students. Is it clear?
Rajesh ji?
Yeah, we'll start the Q&A, Radhika.